Okay, Mark Gaffney. We're here talking about the new movie directed by Woody Allen called Vicky, Cristina, Barcelona. I saw it a couple of weeks ago, and assume you did too. So, what are your thoughts on this entertaining movie?
Well, it's a great opportunity to talk about kind of life and relationships and sexuality, and of course Woody Allen. Woody Allen actually had a very, very funny column in the New York Times. Whether or not you're a Woody Allen fan, it was funny. And he basically talked about his difficulty on the set because he said he writes all three women, really wanted to be with him.
Right.
And, he writes this long column. It was difficult for him, and they had to fend each one of them off, and they all went back to their cast sets, devastated that I wasn't accepting their advances. He wrote an incredible, funny, column about his experience. So blessings to Woody Allen, who's now like 71 or 72. He's been around for a long time.
Wow.
So blessings to Woody Allen. I remember when I was a kid and I saw it, Take the Money and Run. And that was like a major event at the Bungalow Colony in the Catskill Mountains. So Woody Allen's come a long way. And, I think that this movie in a general sense kind of raises, really important issues like any, good piece of art does, whether it's, whether we agree or disagree with it about just, what's marriage about? And I thought that was really the topic. The topic was very much, what's the model for a marriage? Just like in, the Torah, you've got a model of Jacob and Rachel, which is one model, and, Jacob and Leah, which is clearly a very, very different model. Woody Allen, who of course I wouldn't compare to the Torah, right? But just for the sake of this particular literary device, sets up, several models of what marriage is.
Right.
What's the ideal marriage? I mean, that's really the question. Is it findable? What is it? What does it look like? And I thought that was a compelling question to ask. Although there was a kind of bleak conclusion. This was not an optimistic Woody Allen movie. At the end of the movie, everyone remains profoundly unhappy, and no one's found what they're looking for. Neither Vicky, nor Cristina, nor Maria. Maria being who was Penelope Cruz, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember who Vicky was. Vicky was someone, bless her.
Oh, Vicky was Rebecca Hall, the actress.
Okay,
Rebecca Hall.
You see Rebecca. And Cristina was Rebecca
Scarlett,
right? So none of them actually, find what they're looking for. But I think it might be just, important to talk about, what the models were. What were the models of marriage here? So I'll give it a go and turn it over to you. So it seems like, one model is the kind of tempestuous, creative partnership, provoking creativity in each other, kind of model. Which was actually a very powerful model, and one that actually I feel a strong kinship to in just a kind of personal existential sense. It's remember, of course I only study Talmud all the time, but occasionally, I'm like on a plane and the guy next to me is watching a movie so I can get a glimpse. You understand?
Yes.
I'm normally only in righteous Talmud study, but at those moments, and one of them, there was that movie with Brad Pitt and his wife, whose name is Angelina
Jolie.
Right. And so it's called Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yes,
and they're
both.
Right, they're both assassins, right?
Yes.
And they're hired to kill each other. They have this kind of very dramatic, kind of killing each other kind of step-by-step scene, until they finally kind of re-engage each other, fall in love again, this time from a kind of more authentic place. And there's one moment in the movie when they're trapped, and surrounded by 15 people. They're both armed to the teeth, and they kind of walk out together in this elegant, kind of dance, this kind of, Tibetan dance of destruction. And they kind of pass grenades back and forth and guns and under the back and, beneath the legs. And they throw, and they're acting almost as a complete, unit, with,
right.
Forearms. And I thought it was actually a stunning vision of one vision of marriage, which is creative partnership, where we're in sync with each other in some deep way, and we're able to act in the world and provoke each other's, each other's most competent, most developed, selves, in a kind of artistic, creative way. So that was kind of one, one vision of marriage, which was clearly, held out by the kind of Penelope Cruz character and her husband, and it turned out that was a very destructive model.
Yes.
That was a model that couldn't hold. That was a model that, collapsed. So that's kind of what I would say is model one. And I'll turn, I won't look at the other two models. I'd like to hear your thoughts first, but just to say like a 1A on that model, the Jewish version of that model, would very much be, the woman you marry is the person that really is your highest partner. And there's two versions of that come to mind. One of them is actually Chabad, the Chabad Hasidic movement, the Lubavitch movement. When you go to Oshkosh, right, Levi, and you see the Chabad wife and her husband kind of running the scene together, I've always been very, very, taken and, really, inspired, and, humbled by really the beauty of it. I'm sure there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but, when push comes to shove, two kids, 24 years old, wind up, in, like a little suburb outside of Milan with 7 Jews, and they're running their Chabad house. And they're doing it together, and it's a full partnership. They share values, and they share, they share vision, and they share goals, and they're very much partnering, for a greater goal and provoking each other, and it's their highest good. And that's, and the other, a slightly different version of that same model, I think really is the classical, in the best sense, what I've always thought was the classical, most beautiful Hebrew vision, of partnership and marriage, which is that people actually share values, and they become each other's spiritual partners, and they actually call each other, to their highest vocation, to their most beautiful self. The husband, the man calls the woman to be the most stunning woman she can be, and he calls him to be the most stunning man, and they operate then together, and create a larger unit together, and that unit, is often called the family, and sometimes it's called acting in the world together. But that sense of kind of profound partnership, so Woody Allen's showing the tempestuous dark side of it, but if you translate it from just pure creativity, there's what Woody Allen was describing. They're just provoking each other's pure creativity, but creativity is neutral, as you and I know. Art is neutral. Art's completely ethically neutral. So in the ethically neutral zone of art, provoking each other to creativity, right, is bound to collapse, and actually your wife in this case tries to kill you a couple times, which the movie kind of took lightly, right? The old attempted murder by the wife. But when you translate creativity, to values, right, to kind of provoking each other, a shared partnership and kind of spiritual, and ethical unfolding, so the partnership model gets very strong. I think Woody Allen's weakness is he couldn't quite see the possibility, right, of a shared partnership in values. That model didn't occur to him. He only had a shared partnership in creativity. And in creativity then, being, with all due respect to Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way, which, that famous book, which, made, creativity the apotheosis, the ultimate, goal. If you're, in America, if you're creative, if you're from an upper, middle class family and you're creative, you're okay. You can be like a complete murderer, but you're creative. That's, that was Norman Mailer's deal, right? Let's get Abbott out of jail because he's creative, so he'll murder another person. What the hell? So that. Right, exactly. But a partnership in values, a partnership in the journey. Oh my God! I mean, partnership's it's the sexiest, most beautiful, most gorgeous thing in the world. In my kind of just own personal, love for it and experience of it, and so that's my thought on the first model. What say you, sir?
Well, this movie kind of flummoxed me because I walked out of it thinking I don't know what I'm going to say to Mark because I really don't have any take on love in the modern age between largely secular people, and so yeah, it does flummox me because none of these people are devoted to a transcendent value system, unless you're calling art a transcendent value system, which I don't believe it is. I'm thinking that the models for like a good marriage do not make for entertaining cinema. It's far more enthralling for me certainly, to watch a movie where characters are hopping in and out of each other's bed. I mean, that's interesting, but two people building a life around values and rituals is not particularly cinematic. And I know this is kind of dirty pool in a way, but with Woody Allen and co., I often feel like they're making movies